Welcome back to the A-Star Startup live stream. My name is Cale. I am founder of the A-Startup and the AStarship and a whole bunch of other companies. And we're talking startup talk. Right now it's just me. We're going to get people going. Right now I'm trying to grow a beard, so forgive the unshavedness. So the FCC is alleged to have banned drones imports from China and other countries. And this has been making everybody freak out. In fact, I will admit, I too freaked out. Went out and bought a $640 DJI clone off Amazon, the Sky Rover X1, which is going to be here on Monday. So I can't say I'm not already benefiting from the drone ban, but it looks like we're freaking out because the FCC is no longer issuing licenses for new drones. So my plan was to buy this drone and then take 1 month cloning the drone. I'm not 100 and then send it back. I'm not 100% sure I do that. I can't really afford the drone because I spent all my money on another drone. You know, I'm not rich. I have a bunch of startups, right? But empty pockets. But I ordered a 10-inch frame. Sorry. A drone frame for a drone with 10-inch propellers. It's not 10 inches flat. It's a little bit confusing. And I got it for only like $20.45 just for the carbon fiber stuff, not assembled. So that's coming from Ollie. I had ordered my Radio Master Pocket RC transmitter before I found out about that. But that particular product is going to be able to continue to be manufactured because they have a currently existing FCC license. The FCC is not going to be issuing any new licenses for new products. But if the product is currently on the market, it already has a license and the FCC cannot regulate it. So do they have the authority to do this? Yes. The FCC is under the direction of the executive department. They already have their authorization from Congress. It's like if the FDA wants to ban imports of drugs from China, they don't have to ask the Congress. Congress already gave them the authority. The Congress could circumvent this authority, but the Congress cannot usurp the authority without changing the law. So, what does this mean for my startup? I had started building a drone for Ukraine for a nonprofit, and then they kicked me out because I was talking about startups. And I don't know, one old dude who was like main dude doing anything, was like a civil engineer who was a pilot, and he loved guns, and he totally would have been like on my side, but he was like, I don't know. I think he was being an old man. I was the only one doing any work of importance for any of the new people. You know, I was actually building a new drone technology and platform. Don't want to say exactly what it was for national security reasons, but it is I think he got upset that I was like flooding the chat. I don't think it was anything else other than I was posting a lot of messages. And then eventually one of them was like, oh yeah, hey, check out, you guys want to help out with my patented thing? And he's like, you gotta go. I don't know. I think maybe they were taking money as a nonprofit and then they have to like enforce regulations. And then he was just being a Karen, like a boomer Karen. But I mean, that's a good reason not to do that. I mean, I didn't mean to say that, but they kicked me out of there. And then I still got the technology. I am attempting to get my C++ API done so that I could use it. This personally, like if I was relying on these drones for combat, this totally would not be what I want somebody to do. I would want them to use the tried and tested one, but I don't know what to say. I put many years into the Script2 hybrid C++ API. I'm going to add a JSX engine so we could do React in C++. And we're going to have our own compiler because we have to have that for the JSX engine. And we're going to make C++ great again by kicking out the standards committee and all the bureaucracy, and then just keeping the good stuff, getting rid of the other stuff, and banning all the rest of people. Right? Yeah, like my idea. Yeah, I came up with it. Yeah. So, yesterday I took some of my class on Udemy. That's like a FAA Part 107 class. And that class is, let me make sure it's not. FAA Part 107 Simplified UAV campus thing. So I guess what you do is you plug in your drone RC transmitter into the USB port of your computer, and then you can use it to fly the drone simulators. Isn't that cool? I didn't even know that. I don't got my transmitter. I bought my son one. I got him the $170 one, and then I got him the Radio Master GX12 EA LRS, which is the one you want because that one's got the 900 megahertz, so you could do the MavLink long distance drone communication, which helps out if your thing it goes behind something that's like blocking the radio signal. That one can be a lifesaver for you. It's like a LoRa based thing, and allegedly it's secure. I don't know, some people made some complaints. So yeah, why am I going into this? All right, so my theory is that if I'm going to be making drones, I should probably get a FAA Part 107 license before the government comes and kicks my doors down. They're like, wondering, hey, why are you making all these military drones? Like, wow. They're like sex robots. Nah, I don't think they're going to buy it, right? So I'm going to have to get the license. And then I used to make MIDI controllers and lighting controllers. And what happened? I was using SketchUp back when it was like they had this, they had a free version. I don't know if they probably went back to the free version because they switched from the free version and then everybody bailed. And I just gave up on everything because like I put all this work into the free CAD models, and then Dip Trace, which is a PCB CAD program to make my circuit boards. And then all this really bad stuff happened. I might get $2.35 million from the state of Oregon because of all the bad stuff. I talked about it last time in the live stream. Definitely not going to go into that. Very interesting story. I might be famous. You might be having the right to substantial evidence when the state is taking your certain rights. You used to have this. It used to be, I'll just say this one thing about it and then move on because I think it's absolutely infuriating. You used to have, whenever you went to court, the court would instruct the jury to weigh the rights and probabilities. Like you've seen Lady Justice, like the scale. That's what that means. And then court ruled it was unconstitutionally vague. So the states changed to preponderance of the evidence whenever they felt like it. And then they would up it to clear and convincing evidence whenever they got it into federal court. But just only for one thing, like third-party child custody, which is the basis of what we're doing. Troxel v. Granville. I'm in the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. But when they switched to preponderance, they took our rights off the scale. So it went from balance the rights and probabilities to just balance the probabilities. It was like, what are you doing? I'm not going to talk about it though, because I went into detail last time. But we can't be allowing that. All right, but oh shit. This is why I shouldn't go on tangents. I forgot what I was talking about. So the drone thing. So I wasn't, yeah. So I was used to make MIDI controllers and lighting controllers, and power supplies. And then I haven't touched that stuff in quite a long time, like maybe 8 years or something. And then now they're banning all those imports. And so I'm looking at switching to getting into making flight controllers, because, I've looked at what they made. I can make that in a week. And, we can't be having the firmware be flashed on them out of country. I 100% understand that. It's like this is a thing that could turn into a bomb. I know it would be very easy for me to swap people's chips out to give them, when they think they're buying a $100 drone, to switch the chips out with an advanced AI chip. And then if it's in the vicinity of an airport, you fly the drone into a plane and crash the plane. That's a weapon, right? I'm well aware that this is a weapon. So I like this. I'm as an electronics manufacturer, software engineer, AI engineer who is looking for a way to get other people to fund the technological evolution of my business. Like, this is a godsend for me. Originally I'm like, oh, freaking out, like, oh shoot, I'm caught off guard. This is going to be like buying DDR RAM or DDR5 RAM, where it just dries up overnight. And the next thing you know, all the used stuff is like now like cost 3 times more than it did new. Yeah, I just about had a heart attack when I looked at the price of DDR RAM. Like, the same memory stick I bought for $300 was like $800, $1,000. Like, I bought some RAM used, 64 gigabytes, a DDR4, 2933 megahertz, no, 2993 megahertz. I can never remember. ECC RAM, bought it for $32.50 a stick, $75 for 2 sticks. It was $400 for the cheapest one used. Like, what? I was caught off guard because, like, I'm trying to get a laptop. The laptop memory's gone too. People are getting converter cards to convert laptop memory to desktop memory. It's like, wow. Wow, that escalated quickly. Me personally, as somebody who needs to sell at a higher margin, while this sucks for me to be able to procure the stuff, I do recognize that this is caused by what could be viewed as an act of war by the Chinese Communist Party against us to utilize fascist, as in the actual real fascist Chinese Communist, quote unquote, Communist Party controlled companies that work as one fasci, which is the Italian word for bundle of sticks, as in the F word that I'm not allowed to say because I'm a straight white male, and Karen might come and put the smackdown with Xena, social justice warrior princess, and Carl, the white knight, gonna come in with their AI bots, shut me down because I'm a white male with white privilege. There was a point in time where that was scarily true, actually. There was a point in time where YouTube might take down my live stream and give me a harassment claim for that. YouTube deleted my news channel that I spent giant piles of money on For me, giant piles of money. It's nothing for them. Uh, 7 times. Undeleted my channel 7 times. On the seventh time, they denied it. Okay. It was like for alleged COVID and election misinformation, which was actually true. I was the one who was telling people, go talk to your doctor. Don't let some corporate executive or some Karen or the university control your medical decisions. I mean, that's yeah. Yeah, the left complains about fascism. That's definitely much more akin to fascism. Fascism is the mob mentality. So what you have to understand about fascism is that it was spawned by this book called The Crowd by Laban. And after the Industrial Revolution, most of the cultures died off. And all that was left was an angry mob of people that hated the truth and wanted to hurt people. And once you understand that fascists were like communists who didn't do wealth redistribution, and that's why they're right wing, because they don't redistribute wealth. Instead, they focus on increasing economic output so that you can just like they're a hybrid of communism and capitalism. So they thought you would like all the boats would rise, just like the capitalists. They would say that, except for, they used the Jews as a scapegoat for all that's wrong with capitalism. And it was a disinformation psyop. Why am I talking about this? There's such an interesting history that goes on behind this. If you read the book Disinformation by the KGB defector Lieutenant General Ion Pacepa, goes into detail. It is such an insane story, especially with the Gleiwitz incident. There's even more that Pacepa didn't even know about because, there was like soldiers who snitched. Well, I don't know, just say snitch. They confessed about Stalin taught Hitler how to kill half of the rich people, take their money, and then you bribe the rest of the rich people to pay them off to take over. And then there was communist spies in the White House, which Pacepa does detail, but there are other books too that go into more detail about the spies in the White House. And when you start tying it together to, like in Mein Kampf, you'll notice Hitler's always going off about the Jew Karl Marx. And blaming everything about capitalism on Karl Marx. And I mean, I don't understand how nobody noticed this. I mean, Karl Marx isn't a capitalist and he's not a Jew. Like, his family was Jewish. Neither of them were non-practicing. They blamed the Jews for whatever happened in after World War I, and then the Rothschilds with the banks. And but if you understand that the communists were working with the fascists, that they were actually on the same side, then you can understand that in Mein Kampf, when he says the Jew Karl Marx, blaming him for all the stuff that's wrong with capitalism, it's actually disinformation encoded to show you that the communists and the fascists are on the same side. And it all goes down to that Gleiwitz incident, which is the false flag invasion of World War II, or Poland in World War II, where they like staged this takeover of a radio station, and they like shot a bunch of the Nazis shot some prisoners, dressed them up like communist soldiers, put them at the farmhouse so they could take pictures. And then a week later, Stalin comes marching in with an army that would have taken months to prepare. Why am I talking about this? Such an interesting story. Back when I started talking about my news show. So one of the reasons why I stopped doing the news thing, mainly because the economics were horrible due to YouTube's suppression. And then whenever the Ukraine war started, I remember Jackson Hinkle was being a total piece of shit. Like the worst kind of piece of shit you could be, like this like Russia supporter, Vatnik, lying sack of shit, pushing all this anti-American stuff. He's like a MAGA communist. Like, what the hell? Apparently, it's the thing. Apparently, there's a lot of like thug Russians who idolize the USSR, and they're fascists, is what they are. They say they're communists, but they're really like, you cannot be a MAGA communist and not be a fascist. It's literally, MAGA communist is fascism. Like literally, that goes back to, what I was just saying about how the book The Crowd by Laban, like after the Industrial Revolution, all that was left after the cultures died off was an angry mob of people who hated the truth and wanted to hurt people. These people, some of them wanted to take the wealth and redistribute. And then the fascists, they wanted to, like it was Stalin who started killing half of the rich people, taking their money and giving part of it to the other rich people to buy them off. And then Hitler and Stalin were, like, Stalin could have turned fascist. Had Hitler not won or invaded Russia, then the Holocaust wouldn't have happened, because I'm getting ahead of myself. And it's because Stalin, both of them liked each other's ideologies, but Hitler had legitimate criticisms of the problems with communism, that they are a flat social hierarchy, and they don't have like market incentive. They don't have competition. They're not competitive. That's the whole point of Nazism, is it's hyper competitive, racist fascism. And Stalin, like all the propaganda against Jews, actually started from World War II, when they did the Protocols of Elder Zion psyop, so they could blame the mass murder of the kulaks on the Jews. So the Protocols of Elder Zion were written before the Holodomor, but the Nazis and the communists both were pushing Protocols of Elder Zion to cover up the mass murder of the kulaks. And then the Nazis and Hitler studied disinformation war, like military psyop. Like there's a whole the reason why I read Mein Kampf was because I was researching military psyops, and they have a section on military psyops. And then I read the book, and it was actually me who noticed that Mein Kampf, when it says the Jew Karl Marx blaming everything about capitalism, that was actually a coded reference to that the communists and the fascists were on the same side. So for the record, that's my theory. And I came up with that after reading the book Disinformation by Lieutenant General Ion Pacepa. Why was I doing that? Because whenever the Ukraine war started, I was working on an idea for like an app to spread disinformation with AI to cover up black ops. Because why not? This is just what normal people do, right? Whenever there's a war breaking out, you're like, hey, can I get some money out of the CIA? Shit. I mean, I was just exploring the ideas, and then I started reading. Well, and then I was doing, the Freedom Cookbook. Yeah, right. So now I was doing the Freedom Cookbook, and then I was writing about disinformation, and I never really finished that, but that is on the forgotten. Actually, I haven't even thought about that in years, but I will actually finish that book. Boy, I just went off on a tangent. Why did I do that? So China is fascist. China is, because I started going off on it because the Chinese are working together like a fascist mob. So I was trying to explain what is the difference between fascism and communism. Then I got off on this tangent. So fascism is an alternative to the communist ownership model where you don't have private property. Under fascism, you can have private property, but the state can use it when they need to. Okay, they don't redistribute your wealth. The fascists actually work together to make that make it so that your people's businesses are more competitive than other countries' businesses, mainly the United States. That was the main competitor. Uh, you have to understand more about the history of fascism. I have a video about this on my YouTube channel, my personal YouTube channel, Cale McCollough, McCollough. First name Cale. And I go over how the Fascist Manifesto and where it says all this stuff. I highlighted everything and went into detail. The Fascist Manifesto, so their ideology became, it's not very explicit in the Fascist Manifesto exactly what their ideology is on purpose. And it's they're intentionally vague because they want people to side with them. So they're basic. They say basically the problems are the capitalists are in control. Communists don't have any private property. They're weak and not competitive, and they need to. The state just needs to do whatever it needs to do to help the people out because the fascists are quote unquote the ones who represent the people. You know, it's like the communists are like, they say they're quote unquote they represent the workers. You know, it's always like that. They're always like trying to appeal to the common man, the worker, the guy who just gets up and goes to work for their family. Like that's everybody, you know. So China is only communist on paper because they have the hybrid ownership model. Oh yeah, so fascism is best described as a timeshare model. As opposed to not having private property, you can have your private property, then the state can use it. So what exactly is that like? That's like a timeshare. It's 100% identical to a timeshare. I don't know if anybody else has said that. I was the one that started saying that. These are the lessons that you learn when you're running a news channel. And I in particular don't like dictators. I don't like CCP. So when I had my news channel, I would put Winnie the Pooh dolls in all of my thumbnails because F the CCP. I am actually kind of a thumbnail genius. You can't deny the RSS commentary thumbnails are freaking genius. But Congress got my news channel unbanned recently, so you can actually watch the videos on YouTube right now for the first time in many years. But China is, they're working together like a fasci. They do have private property. The rules in the city are not the same for the rules of the people in the country. If you go out to the country, it's communism. Everybody's living dirt poor. They don't have any private property. So they don't have any possessions. They're just poor, like they were before we had the Industrial Revolution. And then you go into the cities and people are extremely classist. It's a very steep social hierarchy. And this is what Americans don't understand. I've never been to China, but, you know, I researched a lot about China, learned a lot from Laowai 86 and Serpent Zeta, China Uncensored. Who's my other China people? I can't think of most of these people's names because they're just individuals. Well, yeah, I mean, you have to read a lot to actually get the history. Like just watching a video doesn't do it. So I read a lot of articles. If I find any massacres, any specific events, I'll go read about that. But China, keep on track, Cale. China, China. In the cities, they have a steep social hierarchy. The government does not take the wealth and redistribute it. Like they don't take money from the cities and then take it out to the countryside. They don't redistribute wealth at all. There's no social safety net. There's no free healthcare, or sorry, it's never free. There's no state-funded healthcare. You have to pay for everything. Everybody's poor, so products are cheap. But this is why they're fascist. They're fascist because after their culture died off, after the cultural de-evolution in China, I mean the Cultural Revolution in China, the cultures died off because the CCP genocided them. And the only real authentic culture, Chinese culture, is Taiwan, which is the actual capital of China. It is, in fact, actually West China. And Xi Jinping suck it. I don't know if I said that. He does, in fact, look like a fat, pudgy beta male Winnie the Pooh. I know that's racist against Winnie the Pooh, but it had to be said. And Kim Jong-un looks like Winnie the Pooh with Down syndrome. Why did I say that? Because we're talking about China. I'm sorry. They're actually fascists. And I hate when these leftists call people like me fascist because I know what a woman is. And I don't want to take all of our money and set it on fire by redistributing the wealth to a bunch of people with the IQ of a mentally handicapped person. And to import in the third world so that it drags the collective IQ of America down 10 points, makes it look like America has some of the worst schools. But if you take out the third world that we just immigrated in, America has some of the highest test scores in the world. In fact, Asian Americans have the highest, as of the last study that I saw, highest IQ in the world on average, Asian American. But this, to notice something like that, to look at statistics and not blame white people for all of your problems is now racist, unfortunately. And a lot of it came from CCP propaganda. I remember covering a lot of news stories about CCP influence in Hollywood on my news channel. They got to disambiguate them pronouns. Hollywood was making a bunch of money, and way more money in China, like twice as much money in China than they were in the United States. And that's because the CCP was utilizing this as a way to influence our culture. Like the movies would be forced to take out like Taiwanese flags. They would take out the black people. They would take out anything gay. And then here in the United States, they're pushing all this gay stuff. And then over in China, they're like all like macho, like trying to be like a 90s dude in America, like Top Gun. Like they're all like hard and shit. And in reality, they're a bunch of like beta wimp, simp commies, punks, fascists. And the cities, they're totally fascist in China. If you want to look at exactly what Nazi Germany would have been like, just look at a city in China. Because they're extremely racist against anybody who is not Han Chinese. Like they're straight up Han Chinese supremacist to the Nazi level. They're hyper competitive, just like the Nazis were. It's a very steep social hierarchy. It's a hybrid ownership model where the elites, they can have property. The in-group, the Han Chinese who live in the cities, who are not the poor people who migrated from the countryside, who are the communists, And usually it's the capitalists who live out in the countryside because that's the only way for them to survive, is to be able to take their farm excess and then trade that for other goods that they can use to survive with, because just having a bunch of food doesn't do you much good. You're like going to be naked out in the way. Yeah, well, I had a bunch of food. It's all rotted now. I'm naked. I have no possessions because I couldn't trade with anybody else. Now, people think you don't have money in communism. You actually have money in communism. Communism does not mean you don't have to work and earn money to pay for things. People think that like communism means you're going to be in this Star Trek utopia. We're going to have like a replicator machine. It's going to just press a couple of buttons. You popping out your Nike sneakers, your Dickies, your Carhartt jacket with your favorite sports team hat. That's not the way it works. In a communist country, you just don't have private property because you can't afford shit. People don't have the economic incentive to actually make it and trade, and they have no idea whether or not they're even being productive, because in order to actually even know if you even made a profit, you have to compare what you have to other people, right? And that requires what? People being able to trade and have private properties that you can compare, right? And the whole idea is stupid. Everything about it is just dumb. It's like people like they want free shit, and then there's a bunch of poor people who are very violent, and then they'll take over, and then they'll shill for the elites. Like the first thing, it's like the first thing they go on doing is starting to shill for whoever rich people there are in their tribe that are the most powerful ones. It's like the whole like, oh, feel bad for us because we're the victim class and we don't have what these capitalist class has. Like all this stuff is just like they just want stuff. And whenever they actually get it, like if you give them the power, they'll just club you over the head with whatever you gave them. And then they'll talk hella shit about you, probably lock you up in a gulag. That's the way people are. Like people are dictator simps. It is very rare to find anybody who has the mental capacity that I have, who can actually express words that I can express. Like almost no one else would be able to express what I just expressed. There's like maybe one in maybe 10,000, maybe a million people that might be able to express the concepts that I just expressed clearly. Everybody else, they're going to go off of emotion and whatever their tribal cognitive dissonance tells them is true. And they don't understand what cognitive dissonance is. They don't understand that when you hate other people in groups, that it primes your brain to believe lies about them, because you side with your friends, because people are emotional creatures. It's really easy to understand. But people don't understand what cognitive dissonance means. They just think it means you believe something that was not true and you're an idiot. Unfortunately. So what am I trying to say? I do see, though, there's definitely a problem with these AI companies taking over. Like, it's definitely freaking me out, because you look in Ukraine, what's going on there with the Russians invading. That's all because they have a far-right fascist oligarchy there in Russia. It's Russo-fascist is the best way to describe it. It's the Ruski Mir is what it's called, the Russian worldview. The Russian worldview is, you got to understand how the Russian Empire came to be in order to understand the Ruski Mir, is that they are in an area that is hard to defend because you never want to get in a land war in Asia. Why? Because you look at the border, I mean, it's huge, long. Like people think, I swear to God, go and ask your friends, how many soldiers do you think there are on the front line in Ukraine per kilometer? They'll be like, 300,000, 2,000, 10,000 Holberg. It's like you're like, whoa. No, no, there's like 7 people per kilometer, maybe 3 or 4, right? Because a bunch of them are dead, right? And they clump up. You can't have that many soldiers in one area, or else you'll get like wham. You'll get hit hard with drones and artillery and glide bombs. Don't think you'll be getting hit by a medium range ICBM. MR ICBM. What's that? No, it's not IC. MRCBM. No, it's not. There's no continental. I'm trying to remember the name for it. It's like, it's not MERV. MERV's like multiple entry re-entry vehicle. You know what I knew. So you got to look at the number of kilometers that are there in Ukraine. There's about how long is the Ukraine front line? Let me get the exact number. It's that one. My memory's bad. There's about 12,050 kilometers of front line in Ukraine. So when you do the math, there's like, okay, so 1,250 times 7 is not very much. But the thing is, that's only like 8,750 on the front line. But you had any more than that, you're a giant target. So they have everything concealed, ready to go in sneak attacks. That's a new thing, but historically, wars, if you have a long border, you got to stretch your whole army out across that. So instead of defending their area, instead what the fake Rus tribe, the Muscovite tribe, they basically they stole Ukraine's tribe name, the Rus, because their tribe, what they did was they went into Siberia and they brutalized the natives when they were weak, and they used them for like slaves and extracting the resources, let them freeze. And then Europe had a lot of things that they needed, so it was like a subsistence level support from the natives. But they're only able to keep that land because it's just such a quagmire to get into any sort of really elongated front line that they just trade with their neighbors. And whenever you have the white people who are just taking all whatever tribes would have been the tribes that would be warring with the other natives, the white people or the white Russians are brutalizing these people. And that makes sense as to why Russia's on the side of the CCP and not on the side of the Europeans. But the EU is crazy, dude. The EU has just been straight up going dystopian. Who was okay? So I watched this interview with this woman who used to work for Deutsche Bank. She was the woman who was behind the DEI stuff at the WEF. That is so sketchy what they did. So the whole thing about that was that the WEF companies were doing selling things that had green labels on them, and they noticed that they were able to collect twice the fees when they just slap green onto the label. Reason for that is these corporations are mega polluters. They use slave labor in sweatshops in foreign countries. They have a frat bro culture where they sexually harass the women. So it evolved into the DEI thing, pushing feminine. If they have a frat bro culture, then they push feminism because they're toting for it. If they use slave labor, then they start pushing anti-racism, because if also too, if they don't hire black people because they don't have good enough GPAs, then they'll push DEI because they don't want people saying that they're anti-black racist because there are too many black people in America and they're too big of a customer block. So they've been pushing the DEI stuff because it was like everybody that was involved in the DEI found a benefit to it. Like the boomers who are going to get replaced naturally, they could just start pushing DEI, and then they got it so that my generation, instead, they handicapped us so that we just didn't come into the workplace to take their jobs. It only affected the people who were not already currently established in the workplace. And one of those people was me. And I am preparing a episode for RSS commentary where I'm going to go into this story. So go check out that channel and subscribe over there. What am I saying? So the Chinese Communist Party started taking advantage of this with the Saudis, the Muslims. So the Muslim people the far right people in America, I don't want to call them far right. Okay, so the Groyper people, I don't really think, I mean, they say a lot of things that's just crazy and stupid and weird and like cringe just for the sake of being cringe. So, I mean, I hesitate to say they are this one way or this one other. They're just posting some Pepe memes and they don't like feminists and I don't know. They don't really have a solidified agenda. But put yourself in the shoes of one of these Groyper guys who's getting accused of being a Nazi because you posted a Pepe meme, and people are always calling you fascist. They're trying to get you canceled. They're always harassing you online. They're talking shit about you. They're turning the women against you. They're trying to ostracize you in your community. I mean, this is enemy behavior. So those people thought that the Jews were controlling Hollywood, and Jews are like the people pushing the people to harass them as if they're a Nazi. And what there is, I've seen some evidence that there's actually some Jews in Hollywood who were like woke Semitic Jews who were high up in Hollywood who were in the DEI thing. And the common thread is that they all don't like Israel because they sided with the terrorist Hamas because of all the propaganda they've been fed. This propaganda is spoon-fed from them from various sources. Some of it's Russian disinformation. Some of it is Chinese Communist Party disinformation. Some of it's North Korean. All of these people, all of these hostile countries have agents that they send over on our internet. They'll manipulate Wikipedia to they got their chat bots. They're doing their military psyop or whatever thing their government supports. Like, that's not like a conspiracy. That's just reality in 2025. Like, we got AI bot swarms. They got farms of smartphones in China and India and Russia, where they got troll farms, bot farms. People getting paid to affect public appearance. Some of it for nefarious reasons. Some of it for like professional reputation reasons that is slightly less nefarious, but clearly still nefarious. So turns out definitely wasn't the Jews involved in the DEI stuff. Like the far right Groypers, they swore up and down it was the Jews behind the DEI stuff, that it was like a conspiracy because they're controlling the world. But it actually turns out it wasn't the Jews. that the people pushing DEI were actually backed by Saudi oil money and the Chinese Communist Party. The CCP promotes DEI, ESG in the West. They want us to shoot ourselves in the foot and buy solar panels and electric cars from them so that they can take over the manufacturing. So for them, they didn't do it, the green stuff. They just got us to do the green stuff and then sold it to us. And then the Saudis, for them, it was an Islamo-left coalition, strange bedfellows, because the Islamists, they want Muslims to take over the United States, Dearborn, Michigan, whatever that place is in Texas. They completely do not support 2S LGBTQ IAA plus pound STD dash Wi-Fi dash password. But they do in America. They promote it here because it develops a coalition. Their coalition, they don't like Israel over Palestine. I would like to take a second to note that none of these people who have been posting nonstop about Gaza for years, calling people fascists and saying people are doing a genocide, none of these people have mentioned the genocide in Darfur. Yes, I implore you, please go look at their social media posts. You will see there is not a single mention about the 65, probably 70,000, maybe even 80,000 people mass murdered in the past month in Darfur or around Darfur. And that they won't mention that was Arabs killing black Christians because they are Arab supremacists. All they do is just fixate on the Jews. But you look in the corporate world, who's pushing the DEI shit? The woke feminists, the people who hate Israel, right? These people also too hate Jews, too. They do. They hate Jews. They hate Zionists. They're like, I don't hate Jews, I just hate Zionists. Well, guess what? Guess who also hated Zionists? Nazis. Nazis hated, they didn't hate Jews. People think Nazis hated Jews. Nazis thought Jews were genetically inferior. No, dude. None of that shit that Hitler was talking about had to do with genetic inferiority. He might have mentioned it a few times, but the thing is, people believed a lot of shit back then. They had just invented genetics. They didn't even know what it was before. And then, of course, they're going to believe a bunch of weird shit. Not everybody hated Jews. People think they guessed they killed the Jews because they hated the Jews. This isn't true. Point 7 of 25 points of Hitler's Nazi Party says very explicitly that if they run out of food, they're going to deport the Jews. Why? Because they blame the Jews for why they lost World War I. And so let's say the Nazis deported the Jews to Russia. Okay, what is that going to cause to happen? What is going to be the result? They just invaded Russia. They ran out of food. They were running out of oil. And then they deport all the Jews over to Russia. What does Russia get out of that? They get millions of soldiers, right? Right, you just like gave them like 500,000 able-bodied dudes that are ready and willing to fight you to the death because you just killed their family, right? That's why Hitler killed the Jews. Why don't you guys know that? Well, you should be really upset out of the public schools. My personal theory is that there was a conspiracy to suppress the truth of the Holocaust because, one, there was communists who infiltrated our government that were manipulating our education, and two, because if you understood what Protocols of Elder Zion was and what they did and what Hitler actually did, you would probably overthrow the government. I personally think that that is probably what is going on, because it just doesn't make any sense. Because what we didn't know that Hitler was working with the communists until after 2001, when they had posted about, or a radio station did a broadcast about the Gleiwitz incident, and a soldier at the time in World War II came forward with the story about where the bodies were buried when Hitler mass slaughtered, I want to say 40,000, might have been 65,000 Polish soldiers and rich people. And Stalin taught Hitler how to mass murder the half the rich to take their money and give to the pay off the other rich people. That was not known until after 2001. And I'm going off on tangent after tangent after tangent after tangent. I just hope it's entertaining. I need to get back to work. What was I talking about? We're talking about China. All right. About how the FCC banned the drones. So China, can I say anything to tie this together to make this whole rant be worth the time? China is a threat because they are aiming to overthrow Western capitalism. The Chinese Communist Party is corrupt to the core. They're, I think they're lizard people, metaphorically speaking, not like they're actually lizard people, but the metaphorical lizard people are, they're like, they're overlords who have lizard brains, that they rule by the lizard brain, which is the fight, flight. I'm allowed to cuss, but, or forage, right? That's the lizard brain, right? Fight, flight, fuck, forage, right? 4 of them. So the lizard people metaphorically are just foraging, eating, whatever, like eating babies, metaphorically. And so the Chinese Communist Party, they're a bunch of morons. Like in Russia, the oligarchs are morons. They're like Nepo babies, people, or thugs, like the strongman who just took over. And they just want to gut the company so that they could just blow billions of dollars on insane, stupid things. Luxury palaces with gold everywhere, like that President Yanukovych of Ukraine, the one who was the Russian stooge that they overthrew his government because the guy stole $70 billion, stole like $2 or $3 billion for himself. Personally, that's what they caught him with. And there was you could look at his palace. Like his palace was insane. It was like one of the greatest palaces in the entire world. It's like Ukraine's a poor country, you know. That's how you know they're Russian stooges getting paid off. Who are like oligarch thugs looting the economy. Like they're like that. If you ask me, that's what a lizard person is. Like Putin is a lizard person. If you look at Putin, when he's drinking a glass of wine, like you'll see he's got this claw that like the dude, I'm one of the rich, I'm probably the richest person in the world claw, where he's like, where it's like, it looks like a lizard person. You're like, you are not one of us. And you could tell it's the dominant claw. I can't even do it because, you know, I'm like a poor beta male loser wimp dude, broke loser. So, and I guess I'm a YouTube D-bag now too. And I am a Sony fanboy YouTube D-bagger. Now, just for the record, I didn't want to be a Sony fanboy D-bag trash loser simp on YouTube, shilling for Sony cameras, but you know, it happens. It happens to the best of us. Yeah. I know where my sensors come from, you know? So tie it together. What do we got? We got China. If we do not stop giving them license to take over our economy, then we won't be able to compete. So for me personally, as someone who owns an aerospace business that makes propellers for drones, and I am building a drone platform, I have a robotics platform that I built from scratch. I personally look at the numbers and it doesn't look good for me as a business. In fact, that's pretty much the number one reason why I stopped my MIDI controller project, was after China took over Hong Kong. Because Hong Kong was supposed to be like an independent country. It was supposed to be two parties, one country, two systems. And then Xi Jinping, he is a power-hungry lunatic madman who is, once he got the technology to start controlling the country with the surveillance state, with the fascist corporations that work together, the CCP controlled companies, then they took over Hong Kong. And I remember that was when I first was starting to watch China Uncensored and ADV China with Serpent Zeta and Lao Y86. Those guys are great. Check out their YouTube channel. I mean, ADV China, that one's not going on after Hong Kong because they can't ride their motorcycles around China. But I remember I learned a lot about China from those guys. I almost feel like I've been there. It's like, I know enough about China to where if I didn't tell you I've never been to China, you would think that I went to China. But yeah, that I realized, I was like, they're the enemy because they're cooperating. If I want to get my MIDI controller manufactured, the Symmetry Live, which is dope, I'm still doing it. It's still going on. I'm just retarded in the sense of I'm slowed down, not like I'm, but like I'm slowed down in the literal sense. I slowed down for a number of reasons, one of them being the lawsuit that I'm just about to get $2.35 million out of the state of Oregon for. And then YouTube censoring my channel, got depression, complex PTSD from court, from when I'm going to get a lawsuit. Get $2.35 million. Yeah, I think they're going to ban the state. The court is just about to ban preponderance of evidence. They're going to ban colleges from having pseudo-judicial code of conduct hearings. If they're going to take your rights away, such as your right to freedom of speech, in my case, they fined me $20 using arbitrary state power. ORS 352.087 says all university procedures or policies have force of law. And then they've fined me $20, so now they're screwed. They are not going to be able to do that. They're going to actually have to have evidence. They're going to have to provide you with enough time to get an attorney and to file responses. And basically, it's going to be too expensive for them to be able to suppress our free speech. They can't just expel you for cussing like they did me. They're going to have to provide me with a list of banned words. That list of banned words is now going to have to pass the First Amendment test, and thus they cannot have a list of banned words because that would bridge my right to freedom of speech. But yeah, so I am definitely seizing the moment on this. My drone from Ukraine could be the hot shit. I mean, I got to find a new FPGA because the other one doesn't work with the new design, but we're going to have software-defined radios We're going to have AI simulations, AI chips, flight controllers. So I've been shopping around for drones. I've been looking at the flight controllers. I am really good at making electronics, and I know that I could make those things in like 2 weeks max. Probably make it in a couple of days if I, 1 weekend, probably. I could clone that flight control. And the thing is we can't have the CCP flashing the firmware for our drones, selling you drones that you think you're buying a cheap drone when in fact it's got an expensive AI chip on it, and the drone's like a sleeper drone that's gonna like come active and go fly into an airplane and like make it crash and kill a bunch of people like a terrorist, right? That's we can't allow that to happen because of Ukraine. Look at how deadly those drones are. We don't have those drones on lock here. We don't have the motors. That's the thing. Like, I got a friend in Corvallis who's a machinist, so I'm trying to talk him into starting to manufacture drone motors. He didn't actually respond to my text messages. He said no to the other ideas, but he did not say no to that idea. I know that he likes that idea. So I'm making drones. I'm making blimps. I'm making, got my own autopilot. And I'm going to start making those flight controllers. Personally, trying to not do the STM32, trying to do some other chips. But I am going to be raking in cash from this. So I am 100% support in this FCC ban on issuing new licenses, because they already issued licenses for the other things. So as long as I can get those stocks, I got a DJI drone clone, the Skyrover X1, and that drone is still going to be able to be sold because they already have a license. They have a license for the transmitter, so they can continue to sell it. So as long as I can just buy whatever they currently have on the market, and then I can introduce my products, which I would not be able to compete if I was forced to compete with China, because whenever I go give my design files over to the factory in China, Chinese, I have now transmitted documents across state lines, and the Chinese Communist Party have every right to take my design files. This is what you don't understand when you send anything across a state line. You have now are dealing with the sovereignty of the other state, and that state has right to control what comes in and what comes out of the state. That is one of the core fundamental duties of a state. Without that duty, the state is not a state. If a state cannot control what comes in and what comes out of the state, it is not a state. So I'm all for this, because I personally looked into getting my MIDI controller manufactured here in the States. And while it wasn't like astronomically higher, the part cost, like just us getting parts, is astronomically higher. Like, they can get parts for like pennies on the dollar. And why? Because they have an economy of scale over there, and the government is doing some fascist stuff with the CCP controlled companies working together as one fasci in order to compete with capitalism through a system that does not redistribute wealth, which is by definition fascism. That is literally the spit and definition of fascism, all the way up and down. All right. I think I've said enough. I'm going to get off this live stream. That was 1 hour and 10 minutes of me going off on various tangents. I think I held it together, right? There was a lot of stuff in there. You know, I bet if you go through and you rewatch it, you probably learn a whole bunch of stuff because that stuff took me a long time to realize. Whenever I started realizing that stuff, it was like, holy shit. You mean the world is not the way that they said it was? Yeah, there's very good reasons why it is not the way they said it was. But you have to understand history. You have to understand the things that were covered up in history, why they were covered up, right? If you understand why the things in history were covered up the way they were, because you understand why the things happened in the first place, it makes a lot more sense. It's like trying to analyze the co-ops in Italy without looking at the history of the co-ops. So you look at the co-ops in Italy and you're like, what are you guys, like a hybrid socialist, fascist thing? Like what's going on? But no, they were actually the ones who were targeted by the fascists because they were so successful that they were being accused of being the capitalists who were causing the problems, but they were running co-ops. I think that's interesting. Initially, I didn't know what to think because I'm like, what is this like socialism? No, it's just a co-op. Okay. Hey, man, that's freedom. Co-ops are freedom, dude. That's the best thing about capitalism. Nobody's like twisting your arm over here to like take your money and give it to them. Like the thing is, you have, as much as, you know, it sucks that the rich people are the AI industry is becoming Orwellian, turning into some like dystopian future. Now RAM costs like astronomical amounts of money. Now it's not just you guys are like, you have money, you're over there. They consumed like open AI consumed 40% of the RAM on the market for like the past year. Okay. We don't have that kind of money, dude. Like I am just trying to buy enough RAM so that I can even get into the AI industry. I have AI products. I would like to buy these chips to do the AI myself at my house, but now I can't afford to because I keep getting kicked when I'm down. People are not cooperative because of the DEI woke shit. I got blamed for all the problems with Trump because, I said I took the red pill, which is like, some abstract thing. And then people are like, you're like a pickup artist. You're a misogynist. You just use women. It's like, I just said I took the red pill, like from the Matrix, bro. Like, I don't know what you're talking about. They're like, you're an incel. You hate women. Okay. All right. Yeah. That totally is not going to make me support you at all, dude. That doesn't work. People think that if you're just an asshole to people and you just like try to cut them out, that's somehow going to like change things or make things better. It's really like, there's a bunch of emotional people who need to learn how to control their emotions and stop being an asshole. There's no other way to explain it. I think part of the problem is, here's my take as a single father of a 17-year-old boy who has seen problems from the tablet, Minecraft, games, causing problems with underachievement in school and the DEI woke shit. I live in Eugene, Oregon, one of the wokest places in the country, the place where they have the Pride Fest at the middle schools, and then they parade all the boys around in dresses in front of the school, and they apologize for being on stolen land at all of the government meetings. Unfortunately, yes, that came from U of O. Woke white people trying to act like American Indians. You can tell in Eugene, if a white person is acting like they're speaking like an American Indian, you're about to hear a bunch of woke retarded nonsense. Like the most cringe woke shit that you can possibly come up with. There's something about it, and it's because they're not on our team. They are on the other team who hates us, white people, They hate white males. They blame us for everything. They blame capitalism. Then they back communism, and they think that China is great. Then they go off. I'm going to end that tangent. Yeah, I think I'm going to end this live stream. Sorry, I'm going off on all these tangents. But I do believe that DEI is pretty much dead. The industry as a whole, it says this is a bunch of stinky, rotten bullshit. The emperor wears no clothes. We're not doing the DEI shit. We're not going to be exporting our manufacturing to China and then not have any drones when we get attacked. And then we're cut off. We can't even get drone motors. Can't get the machines to make it. Can't get anything because, we got hit with DEI. We got hit with AI revolution. We got hit with the 2008 crisis, housing crisis, where we got hit with the mass migrant crisis, jacked up the rent through the freaking roof. Everybody's like, oh, you're just being racist. Right. I live in a state in Oregon where there's 4.5 million people here. Right. Joe Biden let in way more people than are in my state, all at one time. And when you do that, they congregate in the cities. They don't go out to the countryside, too. They go to the cities. They live multiple people in one house, like a lot of people in one house. They live on average one person extra per house. I live in Oregon. We don't have sales tax. We have property tax. What does that mean? That means they pay less property tax, the illegals. That means we have to pay for their health care, which is astronomical. It's $400 million per year that we have to pay in taxes. We have to pay for their education. We have to pay to police. We have to pay for the roads. They don't pay. They do pay a gas tax, yes, but none of that actually comes close to covering the amount of money that it costs for their health care. None of it. The health care is astronomically high, and now we can't even go to the emergency room on the Oregon Health Plan anymore. It's too expensive. Too many illegals going to the emergency room. So now we don't get to. Now we have to go to Salem. We have to go to another city because it's too expensive to go to a hospital when I'm on the verge of death in my city. Then the state's not going to cover it. No, but they'll cover for health care for illegals. Okay. It's like, this stuff's devastating. And then I've had so many people be complete assholes to me because I'm just rational about immigration. And the reason why I'm rational about immigration is because I went on some dates with a legal immigrant from Moldova, Eastern Europe. And I had just left the left at that point in time. And I remember it was kind of strange that at first that she didn't like illegal immigrants. I'm like, well, you're a legal immigrant. Why wouldn't you like illegal immigrants? It didn't compute. It's like, well, you're an immigrant. Why wouldn't you want illegal? No, dude. No, I waited for years to get a green card to come to America. And then all these other people are just going to cut in line in front of me? No, get the fuck out. Yeah. Unfortunately, this is the prevailing thought going through most of the Democrats' minds. Is they're like, oh, well, I like immigrants, so therefore open the borders because more immigrants equals good. Like, no, 1/3 of the migrant women are getting raped. They're getting forced into human trafficking. They're trafficking in fentanyl with them. They're killing. I've lost many friends to heroin and fentanyl overdoses. It's devastating. It's life ruining. You destroyed our community with it, and then I am against it because my friends are dead now because from all this dope that you're bringing in. And then I get ostracized. Like right before COVID was when all that happened. And I've just pretty much been in isolation ever since then. Like all my friends are woke. I'm starting to, get some friendships in person, from other people who also said they were going through the same thing. It's not just me. People actually just lie to other people that they hate Trump in order for them to not turn on them because they saw what they did to me. It was like I was the one nail that was sticking out. They got hammered, right? But all the other guys, they're like too scared to say anything now because they don't want to be killed because they saw that, they saw what happened, they heard everything. It was all fucking retarded too. It was all like the most retarded shit. It was like just people getting upset at each other because they're like emotional, and then just they think that they're like owning you or something, but everybody else who's not emotionally invested in this is like, wow, you're a really petty child, huh? Probably shouldn't associate with you, huh? Yeah. It's like, that's how adults are. They're reasonable. All right, I got to get out of here. Thanks for listening to me ramble for, I guess it's an hour and 21 minutes now. They go on for another 10 minutes after I said I was going to shut the stream down. But yeah, I think I'll try to come back later. So as I say every time, farewell, aloha, sayonara, au revoir, Godspeed in your journey, my friend, and fuck the Chinese Communist Party.